to another evening of Artist Conversations with Materials for the Arts. I'm your host, John Kaiser, and I'm the Education Director at Materials for the Arts. And I'm excited tonight to be in conversation with Tijay Mohammed, our artist in residence, who's actually was working in Materials for the Arts before the quarantine. He's here tonight to share with you about his work, and we're going to be able to ask him some questions as well. So first, make sure everybody understands Materials for the Arts is this fabulous place in Long Island City, New York. That's the Department of Cultural Affairs. And what we do is collect all sorts of leftover materials from around the city of New York and then donate those materials to the arts. We donate them to schools and to artists and to community centers and everyone that could reuse materials and find new value in finding creative outlet in their lives. And we know how important that outlet is tonight. And so first of all, TJ, I just want to say thanks for joining us tonight. Welcome.
Good. Hi, John. Thanks for having me.
So I am excited to talk a little bit. And again, like I said, folks, you'll be able to actually ask questions. Before we get too much into like a little presentation by TJ where he's going to walk you through some of his work, I just want to share with you a little story from my colleague, Omar Oliveira, who's one of the curators of this show. And just maybe, Omar, if you wouldn't mind just talking a little bit about experience with TJ and meeting him in his artwork.
Yeah, thank you, John. So you and I met TJ along with Yolanda Shashadi, another artist, at the Children's Museum in Manhattan, where TJ was the artist in residence there. And they're recipients. They're definitely people that we know and part of our community. And we loved TJ's work and invited him to come. As some of you may not know, we have a gallery, we have a studio, we have an artist in residence program. And he is our spring artist in residence. So he came in March. Unfortunately, because of everything that's happened, I only got to see him for a short period of time before we all had to start working from home. But right off the bat, one of the things I learned about TJ is he's one of those artists who relies on a very disciplined work ethic. So as soon as he showed up, he just began producing work, going through the warehouse and collecting materials. And the great thing, I've been working with the artist in residence for 5 years now. And from my experience, a great thing about having an artist like TJ is that artists with that kind of discipline, they're pretty laid back. When it comes time to put on their exhibition, they produced a lot of work. They normally have their pick up to what to choose from. They're not stressed out about it. And again, they're always in the studio. So even though I only was there with him for a few weeks, I did get to see him a lot. And we got to have some wonderful conversations because he's also, he's very open. He's very generous with his time. He agreed just right off the start to participate in our group show. So it's about 5 artists. And we asked him if he wanted to make something, if he had something. And right away, he was willing to contribute a very large scale piece, which you'll see in the slide, and takes up the whole wall of our gallery. So he's even helped participate in one of our WebEx talks that we had with some of the other artists. And so it's been great having him, and it's been great being able to be in the studio and talk to this working artist. And maybe just lastly, I want to say, because I'm an artist of color, TJ, we talked once about this network that we have. We know a lot of the same artists. We've been in New York making art for a while, and the community of artists of color. And, what's happening now is about addressing that there is not enough support, there's not enough equality, there's so many things that need to be changed. But I really just want to take a moment to acknowledge that this community of artists, and particularly artists of color, have been producing work in this environment, nonstop. And that's all on them. They've done that regardless of what the situation around them is. Even if it's not should be, they take the initiative to make their work and continue trying to get it out there and to talk about things that aren't talked about enough. And TJ clearly falls within that. In his studio, there's a wonderful piece about journalists And the piece in the exhibit is about powerful women that inspire him. So I'm really excited about what's coming up when it's time for him to have his solo show, because I know it's going to be amazing. So that's my experience with TJ, and John, I'll take it back to you. Thanks.
Wow, thank you, Omar. Thank you so much. And absolutely, I mean, that's something that we believe in very strongly at Materials for the Arts, and in New York City in general, is the strength of the arts to help with righting some of the inequities in our society and creating communication and actually having some really amazing impacts on our society. And that's why we feel so strongly about it. So without further ado, TJ, welcome. I think what I'd love, I know you've got some images. If literally you'd be able to, in a sense, walk us through, the story of your art. I can just say that when I first met you, you were in the Children's Museum in Manhattan, surrounded by fabric flowing out of every background and kind of into the distance, and you're working meticulously. And so I know you've got so much to say, and thank you so much for being here tonight.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. Of course, working with Materials for the Arts, it's a dream come true. But first of all, I would like to thank everybody on the platform. I would like to give a big thank you to all of you who've been supporting me from day one. And this is a very great opportunity for you sharing your time. So of course, again, thank you for the gift of time, which is the most valuable asset that we have. And I said I'm working at Materials for the Arts. It's a dream come true because when I moved to New York City, I think the only thing that I had was my idea and then my dream. So I was like ready to work. And then I spoke with Miguel Luciano, who is a very good mentor of mine. We met back in Ghana. So he mentioned Materials for the Arts, but then I wasn't able to like work until when I had the opportunity to like work with different organizations, and then found Materials for the Arts. And then, years later, I see myself working in the space. So it's a very good, great opportunity. Also, I just want to mention that like being in the space itself, it's a motivation for me, because for me, collecting things has been part of me. Whenever I see a material, there is a conversation I have with the material. And then through this conversation, sometimes I adopt the material and then save it in my space. So like in Ghana, where I have an open studio 24/7, like I have tons of materials like stock. So occasionally these materials goes through and they give me conversation. And then through that, I have inspiration because I see so many histories in these materials. Yeah, so I don't know if I should just like jump into like the slide or yeah. So yeah, so I think it's up.
There we go.
Yeah. And believer who believes that nothing is impossible without the huge support of family and also, most importantly, community. So all these communities have been supporting my art. And yeah, so a lot of communities have supported my arts, my organizations, and thanks for Materials for the Arts. So as you can see, when I got into the studio, like Omar mentioned, I was like ready to work because my mind was ready to work the moment I met you guys at Children's Museum. So since then, I didn't know what to do in the space. So I'm like, okay, this is a huge place. I'm going to the Amazon forest. I don't need to carry food because there's food over there always. So that's like what happened. And then, yeah, just to talk briefly about this piece, because I'm going to talk about it more in like a few slides. This is what I have currently in the show. And looking at this piece, like there are so many questions to ask. Uh, Prior to making this piece, the idea I had was I wanted to create something in honor of my mom, because I'm a Muslim, and then we all know about art and Islam and how my mom was able to stand behind me to make me like go into art school. So I started making artworks that like every birthday of hers, I would do artwork. Gradually, I turned the conversation to thinking about women because my mom is a woman. I have sisters, I have teachers, I have mentors. So how do I celebrate this group of people? So I started thinking about the idea of conveying or converting a very singular and a personal story into a more historical and wider audience. Then I thought of fabric. So here, the fabrics I use in my work are collected from seamstress all over the world, wherever I travel, from Ghana, Trinidad, Nigeria, here in the Bronx. Like I have tons of seamstress that I work with, from Naomi, Amma, I have them. So this is what happened in my neighborhood. Fabric is very popular. This is not a wedding in my neighborhood, but this is from my ancestral country in Nigeria. So women wear this in like as a form of uniform for an occasion, from birthdays, from like funerals. And also I have these two images here of the dashiki. A little bit of history with the dashiki is that this is the original one where we have like the Black Panther sitting wearing it. It used to be called danchiki, which means the inner, like what I'm wearing. And then gradually language changed, and then it became like dashiki changed. I mean, dashiki changed the word from danchiki to dashiki, but it all started when like the liberation, where African Americans are going back to home, like Marcus Garvey back to Africa, and wearing something that symbolizes you. So fabric became a very beautiful material for me that holds history. And also, like Ella Natri mentioned, Ella Natri is one of the incredible Ghanaian artists based in Nigeria and a huge African and international global icon. He mentioned to me in one of our conversations about what materials I use, and he didn't want to hear you use paint because he felt paint was like sort of imported and you have to rely on somebody to get it. So how about using reuse? Like look around you. And like in his work, I quote from him when we had a conversation with Harriet about how Ella Natru sees each material in his work as a DNA. So this material is bringing in history. So I'm looking at this piece. So around the time I made this piece, that was when Eric Garner got killed in Staten Island. 2014, I was in Staten Island. I like to walk around. So all these conversations started with Black Lives Matter. And then I started questioning myself, what can I do? Because I'm part of this story. We used to say in a Hausa dialect that whenever, I mean, translated, we say, whenever you see your friend's beard on fire, you should look for water. So in a way, it's saying whenever you see something bad happening to somebody, you should look for a way to assist them. If not, it's coming back to you. And my work is about the process of my work is about the complexity of the African and the African American experience. So I thought of like creating a piece that maps these immigrants, and each piece here of fabric. Here I use about 170, maybe over 170 pieces. Here, some of them are from Trinidad, Ghana, Benin, Togo. Each one of these, for the sake of time, has its own meaning, but it's currently showing at the Hudson River Museum. Hopefully you get to see it when things get back to normal. Then with the same fabric, I also use it to create like a story circle, because I want, like, my work is about my own history, people's history, because I believe a work of art, as an artist, like my work has to be a representation of myself and then my community. So as I think about my thought process, I think about myself and how to convey it globally. So sometimes I create like story circle. This happened in South Bronx, Kelly Street, when I was doing my residency with the Laundromat Project. Yeah, where we just like sit down, eat, talk about like issues, supportive listening, and then eat. On my open studios, I cook. Unfortunately, today I cannot. And the one on the left is also when I did BCA, Bronze Council on the Arts, has been very supportive when I chose Bronze to be my home. So this is like part of some of the grants I get to work in a senior center with this. And this piece here is the one I have currently at Materials for the Art. And like, you know, as I mentioned, Materials for the Art to me, it's a very like inspirational place to be. So when like Omar mentioned, like we had to like do an installation, I started going about because I don't like repetition. I like the act of repetition, but I don't like to repeat like the actual like message. So here I wanted to work with something that I found within the space. And I found this mirror material that I felt would be a reflection and an add-on to the piece. Ubuntu here means I am because we are, like we're living in a crazy times now. Ubuntu, it's from like the South African Ngunu language, where like I am because we are, you know, you being there for other people and you believing other people exist because of you. And once you do harm, it goes back to, you know, the same person, you. And it has portraits of people. Yeah, and this one here is the second version of the same fabric product. So when I take a material, my mentor, Ghanaian mentor, Kofi Dawson, like in one of my classes said, when you take a material, a used material, try to think about the other siblings of the material and then work with it constantly, like to be able to marry the material. So here I wanted to marry this like scraps. So I had to repeat another version of this. But here I'm referencing the Quran, which, you know, being a Muslim, you know, about Islam and art, I want, you know, I want to use my art to be as a source of like education, that art is not forbidden, you know, the art is not forbidden, but what you do with your art is what might become forbidden. So here I'm working with this fabric exactly the way I take it from the seamstress and then working directly with it, sort of creating this atmosphere where everybody is accepted for who they are. You know, I believe you do not have to like change people to be just like you, but you should accept them as they are and then find a way to, you know, to be on a proper like level with them. So that's what this piece is about. And yeah, of course, John, from here, I'm gonna like move into another piece. So if there's any like questions, since it's not like a lecture, it's a conversation. If there's anything, of course, you could chip in, and I encourage audience, if there's anything that I like skip on and you wanna know, like just jump into the comment, and I'm like super excited to touch on that too. So in the absent, do you have anything, or we keep moving?
I mean, I think that it's amazing to just see all these different pieces. Why don't you just keep showing it? Well, the only all right, I just have one question, which is because I don't know, I don't want to get too ahead of you, but in describing like that, say that last piece that I saw, I've heard you get really enthusiastic about, you know, kind of the story behind your intentions of hunting down this different fabrics that were created by different people and specifically women, and kind of that a little bit more about that. If you could just tell us a little bit more about that intention, you know, and that mission and that art project in a way.
Yeah, so the piece is about like mapping and celebrating the very vital role women play in our societies. So here I reference a verse in the Quran, which is An-Nisai. An-Nisai means the women. So in the Quran, there is a verse for the women, but there is no verse for the man. So this is An-Nisai chapter 1, where like the Quran is describing the high ranks of women, and then also like the role they play in a community and what it means to stand for like your fellow being. So it is part of a humanity, like one of the humanity verses of the Quran. So these fabrics here holds their own history, but then there is a little bit of politics involved in these fabrics. Because I know like Ghana was, we gained our independence, my birth country, Ghana, in 1957. By 1960, the first prime minister, Dr. Nkrumah, wanted us to produce our own thing. So from there, we started like working, like the Nkrumah started working with Blisco, which is the Dutch company, which has another story. I think we could have a whole program on that. Or if more questions on like that, I can elaborate more on like the fabric and the history with the political aspect of it and why it's called African wax fabric. Because the reason why you see it being called African wax fabric, Africa is more greater than Blisco itself. Africa holds its own history installed in the objects that you find on the continent. So once these fabrics are produced, like when the Dutch were in Ghana in the between 16th to 18th century, they were like in and out of Ghana where Europeans were coming in and out. Like there's this stealing, this stole, like it happened. Just like looting happened, now France wants to take back some of the artifacts to Africa. Where is it going? We have a museum, but are you going to compensate us for these artifacts, like being in your museums and building your own countries? It's like I stole from you and then I use it, I produce, I gain from it. And then now I'm saying, take your thing, I don't want it again. Are you going to compensate for that over 400 years? So Blisco stole, like not Blisco itself, but the idea of this fabric started from Africa when we were making our own clothes. African fabric was already there. When you go to like the Ashanti history of making like the funeral cloth, the weaving, all of this was there. So of course, when you steal somebody's idea.
Wait, TJ, just to make clear for people, so you're saying that the European companies actually took over the creation of the fabric for Africans and in a sense stole that manufacturing process. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, because Blisco, like originally it was made to be sold in like Indonesia and all of this, but Indonesian batik technique. But then when you take a close look at these prints, they are very traditional ways of making African fabrics. So when the idea was taken to another place, Indonesia, to sell, it failed. But Africans embrace it. Why would you embrace it just like that and have the name African wax fabric? Because the symbols on it, we relate to it. We identify it. So these symbols you see on the fabric has its own meanings, has the poems. And sometimes it's just the design and then the meaning is attached to it. And there are times when it is the meaning comes first and then the design also follows.
So wait, how would like a meaning come out of like what's an example of like a meaning on a certain fabric?
So like an example is when you look into this piece, it's current like the one in Materials for the Arts. It's also another way to see it live. And then if you also have the chance, this is at the Katona Museum and you can also see it. But when you go closer to this fabric, each design has a meaning. Like there are ones that have like zigzag, like circles, like triangles, all these reference like heritage, like strength, diversity of life. Some of these symbols have Adinkra symbols, which are originally like from Africa with migration from like Abidjan to Ghana, and then it settled its home in Ghana. So all of this, it's like slowly happening. And then that is like you have the motive. So you have the idea. Then you use this idea to print fabric. And then there are times, because when you go to visit these fabric stores, some of the fabrics have to be named before it's sold. So it's like there's a lot of things happening with this fabric crossing borders. And then when Ghana invited Blisco Nkrumah in 1960s to help establish our own like fabric industry. It started, where it's business, so everybody takes their shares, and then it started growing. But now, honestly, if you want to really, really know about African fabrics and their meanings, you have to lean to a company like the local Ghanaian companies like Printex, like Akosombo Textile, all these local ones, because they design with the meaning. And the meanings are the proverbs. And the proverbs of Africa is what is now printed on the fabric. And then these waves, they all have their own meanings and the colors. You wear a fabric, it has to be worn for a funeral. You wear another fabric, it has to be worn for like a birthday. When a senior person dies in the family, there is a kind of fabric you wear, like the black and white, and then the symbols in it. Like in this piece here, when you look deep into it, there are symbols that talk about like feminine, that talks about power, that talks about marriage, like the kente fabrics. All these are part of like what we've lived to, like it's part of us, it's the culture. So this fabric becomes an object that not only celebrate the person that is coming into the piece, but also the heritage. So I'm working on like another project to like deal with that issue as well.
Man, I just think that it's so exciting to me because one of the things I think is so exciting about materials for the arts and reuse in art is that every time you use an object, it's like that object already has a built-in meaning. And so you're creating this, connection between all these previous meanings. And there's so much, and this is even deeper layers of that, because it's like you can just stare at this art piece and go deeper and deeper
Yeah.
and deeper. And then the fact that actually the community participated and actually got to actually play a role in a sense in contributing pieces. So, in an installation like this, how are you actually installing this? Is this, attached to the walls or laminated? What's going on?
The process for this mimics the human body. So it is like adding layer on top of layer. And then the first one is I have like a very thick. In this piece, I use Tyvek. So the base material is Tyvek. Tyvek, like the ordinary fabric for building wrap. So I'm looking at I'm referencing that conceptually, like, you are wrapping the body, you are protecting the body. It becomes like like a shield. And then I would use glue, like down, water it like half, like 50-50, like just the Elmer's glue, normal Elmer's glue. And I learned a technique in Trinidad because I like to work with community. My studio is always open. And, once we did, like I learned in Trinidad, that we just dump everything in the bucket, wear gloves, and then just take and then work with our own hands. And this idea of community building in this piece comes from Sirigu. Sirigu is a village in Ghana where like making art and pots, it's part of the livelihood for this community of women, like where they make art. So I'm like referencing this gesture and community building into my piece, like referencing all these traditions.
Wow. Amazing. Just so beautiful. All right, TJ, take us onward.
Yeah, so this piece here, when you look at the name Anas Armiao Anas, you can read the text while I talk. I think in 2009, like somewhere last year, July, maybe 14. This is an investigation journalism, like who is like well known around like Africa and global. Like our President Obama has mentioned like him, and in many like in one of his presentations about what he does and put himself. So he covers himself. Now, when he comes into the public, he covers his face with beads. So sometime 2014, I started a piece that was in line with what he was doing, but I was playing with just the eyes. I didn't like I didn't thought about like the face. I was just thinking about what it would be for Anas to look like, because now Anas is changing into different people. And last year, one of the guys working for him got shot 3 times and died, like in his own neighborhood in Ghana. So a lot of things happening in the West. It's not just the West. It's also happening on the continent. But as an African artist working outside of Africa, setting themes and topics also has to be of essential to me. So I wanted to do something around Anas. So I'm doing like a portrait of Anas to create this like environment where we sit and talk about this kind of people, because his slogan is naming, shaming, and jailing. So he's like investigating, naming, having like a lot of proof, investigating, and then jailing these bad guys who are making Africa look horrible every day. And so I started working on this piece. As you know, I work collaboratively with like communities. So I started mapping, going around like various communities, like drawing people. People post. I remember my sister was doing her graduation, and I went there with my drawing like book in Legon, Umitanko, when she was graduating. I went there with my drawing book with assistance of my like friends. I started drawing for people's eye. So here, I also want to say a big thank you for the contribution Materials for the Arts is doing, because when I wanted people to donate, like to present themselves for me to draw, I had people who like volunteered. And then also, yeah, so part of this piece, I'm also going to seek for, I think I have about 40 eyes to go somewhere around. So if there are people who wants to donate. Yeah, yeah, you are. I
This is at Materials for the Arts right now. So this is like
yeah,
what,
this is
8 feet tall?
yeah,
This is like
yeah,
10
it's
feet wide. It's huge.
yeah, it's very huge. But I started in like way back in 2014, and sometimes I start a piece and I don't know what to do with it, so I have to put it down. But the inspiration in Materials for the Arts made me like open up to it, and then started working on it again, because I like the idea. I'm an immigrant. I enjoy being that. So the idea of moving, because I believe we're all one. So when I start a piece in somewhere in Trinidad, I can end the piece in Ghana, or I can end the piece in Mali. So I'm like moving around based on the inspiration. And yeah, the colors you see, it's a t-shirt material, which was sourced from one of the large market in Ghana, Cantabanto. And they are part of this, which is also sourced from Materials for the Arts. So I'm like working with different materials which have their own history across borders. And the drawing of the eye is acrylic paint. I wanted to mimic the graffiti drawing. This is like one of the close shot. During the show, it would be raised up, but this is it. And when you see Anas was wearing this headpiece, so I found this chandelier in Materials for the Arts, and I thought, oh, this would be a great idea. And like sometime last year, another incredible artist in the Bronx also gave me, helped me build a machine that I could install on top of my art piece and have it rotate. So I'm playing with this idea of like kinetic art, which you're going to later see in my works as we evolve. And yeah, so I'm working, this is on like work in progress. So I'm working with these beads, and I'm going to create like a giant, sort of like a monster, but it would go around and act like, friendly, but at the same time, it's not, because that is the whole idea of Anas. He could pose himself to be like an imam or a pastor and come to you, and then, so I'm like trying to play with people around that. So it is the portrait of Anas, but the whole idea is to highlight what he's doing on the continent, because his guys are being killed now, but he's still doing it.
Wow.
And yeah, so this is a picture of my daughter that I painted. Yeah, and also before I just keep moving with this piece here, I'm also taking like inviting people to submit photographs of either themselves or babies sleeping. I want them asleep, and the baby should be before, I mean, within 0 to 1 month. I don't like want kids that are more than 1 month, and I like them when they're sleeping. So the whole idea is I used to like to watch my daughter when sleeping, and it became like a meditative process of watching her sleep. But then the whole idea of painting her in this, and these are all stuff that some of it from Materials for the Arts. But the idea of this piece is for it not to be watched like that. It's meant to be watched in the dark. And one of the references it's doing here, it's referencing the text where from Okwe Windsor of blessed memory, the curator, like huge curator, where in his text, Archive Fever, he references, I mean, he talks about the work of David Hammond, the work Concerto, Blue Black, I mean, Concerto in the Dark, like Blue Black, Concerto in Blue Black, where so here, Okwe Windsor is saying, how can you see a work of art in the dark? You know, unless the art itself is the darkness. So here it is a video I will just play while I talk. And here I'm playing with lights. And I had this idea of like, you know, adding lights to it when, you know, Tara from Materials for the Arts mentioned to me one time, and another lady, about how Materials for the Arts receive a lot of like Christmas lights immediately after Christmas. So there was this time I came in and there's a lot of Christmas lights. And I started thinking about what to do with it, but I still didn't want to use the Christmas lights. But right there, I got the idea of working with light. So here, light is playing the idea. You know, light itself, it's light is virgin unless its virginity is broken by another layer, which could be the object or the material that comes on top of light before the light changes color. So light is always like plain and naive until another person comes up and then light changes into like colors. So here light becomes a pigment here. I'm working with light, and the more you walk around this piece, it's like she's breathing, but then it's a painting and you can see a projector. So it's all going to create this idea where the title of the piece is yesterday eating today's future, I mean, today's tomorrow. So it is a question about our environment. And the environment here, the idea, this is like different colors of it in steel. And the idea of like this working with this piece, you know, in relationship with the environment and the future is came about when I had a conversation with my brother who is studying for his grad school environmental policy, where we're talking about the environment and what it's doing. So here I'm asking the question, are we like destroying today, like this generation's future by, you know, overconsumption, overproduction, you know, cutting down trees, you know, like the idea of recycle. So I'm still playing around the recycle, but now the object is absent, but I'm looking at it in another way. So this is like how I play. It's a crib, baby script. The whole idea is to see the piece in a dark. And there would be also another a video that I would have to work on later. And yeah, this piece here, I refuse to talk a lot about this piece and have the viewer talk about it instead. I'm now becoming, you know, I'm taking myself out of the piece. because when I moved to New York, I was fascinated about the Metro card. So far, I think I have close to maybe 4,100, like 4,100 Metro cards. I started collecting since 2013, the first time I got to New York and then went back. And also I want to say, like, take this opportunity to thank Materials for the Arts and their staff, especially like for sometimes I come into my studio and I see Metro cards, like people donate this, and my friends from social media and my family who are supporting once they see this. And mind you, I've got some unlimited rights from collecting these ones too. So it's just ties around the same idea of overconsumption and of production. If you see something, say something is what prompted me to wait. And I'm saying, okay, if I see it, I have to say something. But now I want to say something without words. I am speaking in a language that I don't care if you understand or not, but I want to also listen to yours. So here I'm not important, but you are the most important because I want to hear what you are saying while you see this. And you see handcuffs in the piece because of the experiences that people have gone through with these cards. These cards holds the history of like tourists, immigrants, and native New Yorkers. And because of this card, somebody could go to jail, somebody could die. Because of this card, like I've witnessed it, and myself, I've been like a victim of this. I had to go to like the local, is it the MTA court or where you have to go because you got into the bus without a ticket. And I didn't skip the ticket. I had it, but like, so this whole idea of like the environment and oppression and how we're trying to be free, but constantly you are being forced not to be free. And in a video of this here, inside, you will see keys. So it's like we're already free. So have it in mind that we are free. Just say something and keep moving. And I'm also thinking about the card in various ways. Here I'm thinking about the card like mimicking this like underground path. So I also had inspiration to work on these Metro cards. The first day, I think I was there with John or Omar when I came in to see the studio. I knew I was collecting Metro cards, but I didn't know when I would work with it. Although I have experimented with it to do like the subway map, and also collected sound. So the installation of this is going to include like sound from all the train lines and like people's participation. So again, I'm going to solicit here. If you have Metro cards, you could let me know. We'll find a way. I don't care to spend so much time to go pick one Metro card because it holds history for me. Again, if you cannot do that now that we are not using the card more, you could just give me a message of what you think. And there's a set of the cards about 1100 where I'm going to write the text of what the audience are saying. So instead of the MTA instructions, it's going to be the instructions of New Yorkers on the back, and then it would be installed back in the piece with the sound recording from all these trains and conversation on the train. And I saw the mirror, the window, the huge window on the right, which is a view of the train station. So when I got into the studio, I just felt and envisioned the MetroCard installation. Then I started thinking about how to install it. So right there, I started walking in the warehouse and I saw these nets, some were like basketball nets. And then I'm like, okay, this could work. So I started thinking about it. Then I went to the office supply area where I found pins with the help of one of some of the volunteers that came in. I just started working like the first day because like I was pregnant. I wanted to
cool. So cool.
Yeah. So like the piece started working, and these pieces are best to walk in, you know. So I have like a video here. So if you have something like up, we could just say it while this video play, because I think that is like the last slide. And then we'll take suggestion and questions. I will just leave this to play and for viewers to have a feel of the studio at Materials for the Arts. And I look forward to installing it. Yeah. Yeah, so this is just a studio view, and I will just take the questions from here.
And those are painted on there?
Yeah. These are all like hand painted. And you know, earlier in my career, I have a clothing line. I had a clothing line in Ghana where I make airbrush, but I make airbrush using the Bristol brush. So like as an act of resilience and collecting all these materials and people, it's like a way of collecting and building community. So I just went back, revisited my airbrush technique using Bristol to do the eyes.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, so this is like the view, and that's the window I was telling you about. Um, this window leads to like it's a train station behind there. So that was like the inspiration or the kick start off. That is what took me to labor to bring out this piece, the window. Yeah, and we keep going, and yeah.
Oh, it's beautiful. I never noticed the poetry, you know, in the language on the cards.
Yeah, yeah. And some of these cards, when you like this one that says 450, I don't know if it's like for the ride, the double rides or what do you call it, like two rides. Yeah, but and also what I noticed in collecting these metro cards, another interesting thing I realized is that like the cards that had Spanish, I found a lot of those cards. I started finding more of those cards like lately. So all the cards that I found, so I begin to take them out. Like this one, I circulate out. It's this one has a see something, say something, and then this one has a New Yorkers keep New Yorkers safe. Then you will see this one in Spanish. Unfortunately, my Spanish is not good, but it's like something nueva, like new. All of these messages would be bilingual, but a lot of the ones I found earlier were only in English. So I think like there's some change happening. The more you like resist, the more you keep going, it goes and then it keeps changing. Then yeah. I don't know. I don't see the comments, so maybe you have to read it.
Wow, no, that's amazing. Wow, thank you. So I mean, if folks, if you're interested, you're welcome to add on our, you know, on the chat questions. We're happy to answer them. Looks like someone has a question. They're just um, wondering about some of the different materials you use. So, what are so the fabrics that you're using? They're probably all different types of fabric, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Cotton, some is synthetic, I'd imagine.
Yeah, yeah.
That doesn't. I'd imagine that doesn't stop you. Like you kind of appreciate the variety.
Yeah, I appreciate the variety. And like I mentioned earlier, you know, appreciating the variety, it's an act of including everybody, you know, as one. Because, you know, when I started, so many ideas came as to, oh, let me work with only the lace fabric, or let me work with the only cotton, or let me work with this pattern. In the first piece, Ubuntu, I created a wall, and the idea of creating the wall became very significant. That was during the time of building the wall in Mexico. So this wall then became a wall of freedom, a wall of inclusion, where you could see a lace fabric, which is produced in like UK and worn by a woman, a Yoruba woman in Nigeria, Lagos. And then I'm including it. And you find a piece of fabric because somebody did alteration with a seamstress, and this fabric comes from maybe India. And then the lady brought it to the seamstress, who is African, to like alterate. So once the seamstress gives it to me, I take it as it is and include them. So it's sort of like building community and also like celebrating who we are. Yeah.
It's amazing. It's amazing. So yeah, I mean, you know, one of the things that strikes me is I mean, you're obviously to me a phenomenal artist, you know, and I love personally, obviously working for Materials for the Arts, this idea that
Yeah.
the idea that you don't just go to paint, that you don't just go to traditional materials, that you find supplies, and whether it's a light or metro cards or fabric, that you're reusing it and using that and thrilling on that experience. But I'd love you to talk a little bit more about your interest in community. You were mentioning how you were driven to make art, how that maybe was a little bit of a challenge for you, but yet how you saw such a value in it helping society. If you just talk a little bit more about like kind of
Yeah.
how does it, you know?
Yeah. Okay. So when I was like, I wanted to go into engineering, like civil engineering. I enjoyed seeing my dad, build wells, like his philanthropies, they build mosques. And then I enjoyed, how he was doing that. And for some reason, they thought I was going to go there. And I myself, I loved it. But then by age 7, I had already started drawing. So I think this idea clicked back, like, something just happened. And then I saw the art scraps. I was just walking around an art school in Ghana, Ghanata College of Arts. And then I saw the trash. I'm like, no, this is artwork. I can do this. So slowly it started. But then religion stopped me, like was sort of like an halt, but it did not, because not all my family believed in that. My family is like very broad-minded and very, prompt. But a few of them, wanted to talk about religion, and how my mom came into it was that. And that was like one of the things that I realized in having power, because she was, she had power at home because our dad knew that she had to have power. He liked her idea. He still liked her idea of how she is able to change stuff. She's a housewife, but she has a business in her home. She like it's like a retail in her district. She deals in onion. So being able to come out powerful and make certain statements like, um, why they keep like, it's like oppression, like you don't do it, it's haram, you're going to face God. But then whatever you do in religion is between you and God. It's not between you and man. So, just leave TJ alone. Whoever has a problem with him should come and talk to her, and not in a like in like an aggressive way, but she said it slowly and then in a conversation. And then that's it. That was like my freedom in working with art. And from when 9/11 happened, I was on my way to school in Ghana. I wanted to do something with that. But the idea kept working and building up till when Bronze Council on the Arts uh, funded me to do a project called Art in the Mosque. I went back to the mosque where you said art was haram. I went back to there to, slowly and then, respectfully have an engagement, have a conversation, and be like, no, art is not. And then the kids in their school also embraced it. A few of my artists that I invited to help in the project came to the mosque. My friend Stephanie Alvarado, who is a poet, she came to the mosque, and then she's a Latina. She sat in the mosque. I think she's like just have a conversation with the kids. They wrote poetry, and then now we open up. We invited um, all like community development officers. We invited even the NYPD to be there because there's one guy, Mohammed Amid, who is part of the community outreach. We invited them to give a talk. And then at the end, we'll make art based on what the conversation. So I was like solving my own problem. And all these kids came out. And when you ask them, when they stand up to recite a poem or when they stand up to like introduce their artwork, discuss, I have a short clip of that on YouTube on my page, like Tijay Mohammed, Art in the Mosque. And they talked about what they wanted to do. And this was like freedom to them because I didn't have that. I didn't see an artist work, but I only saw that art is not forbidden. It is what you do in the art that might be forbidden. But you know, if you think I'm doing worse, or I'm not a good person, or I'm doing what is sin, we all sin. And it's not, the idea is not about sin and who is like faithful. And it's not about that. It's about how you treat people. You know, the end result, it's the love that comes out of you that makes it, you know, like very more powerful and that relates to people. So I think the only thing I start working with is love. Yeah. And once I have this love, I have conversation with my material. I send the conversation to a wider audience, create a community, start talking, and then start including my materials. The more I work with the material, I pick a piece of fabric here, beads here, maybe light here. It's community. You're building a community. So I look at my artwork as a community. I'm building community through my artwork. It becomes an act of resilience. So all of these, you know, references our own nature of being. Yeah.
No, it's true. I mean, like seeing the photographs of the meals and the gatherings, like, you know, when you have a gathering of people, we're learning now in this quarantine how magical that is. But then when you add art into that equation, it's just such a fun. It's such a magical experience that once you've experienced it, you can never forget it. You just know how powerful and, like you say, loving and meaningful it can be. It's just so important.
Yeah. Like I see here in the chat says I didn't inspire, but okay, they had Europa beaded head wrap. Yeah, so I think that would be a conversation whenever I meet Anas Armiel Anas, the journalist himself, because I know why he started using the beads to cover himself. But I'm working with the beads because, you know, beads itself, it's a symbol of unity. You know, like beads are separate, but you need like a single string to put all these together. So sometimes this is also another idea when you see on a fabric, on an African print fabric, that is what it means. You know, it's like community building. You are tying people together in like a circle. And yeah, so yeah, there might be some reference over there with Yoruba beaded headdresses. Yeah, but maybe, yeah, I would, yeah, because now I'm working, you know, you cannot see Anas. He's covered all the time. But I remember early when I was in Ghana in my studio, one of the students said she saw my artwork in his office when she was studying at the journalism school. So I think all of that came about. Oh, there's another question from the chat. Do you think the viewers need to know African history when they see your artwork? What do you think? Yeah, I think history plays a very like essential role in my work Although I am like celebrating history, this fabric celebrates the aesthetic meanings of this of Africa. At the same time, there is an element that is dealing with the politics of this same history. So I don't have that piece here, but it's on my website where I was commissioned by the commission at the Ghana Embassy in New York to like do a piece that like telling the 400-year history of Africans in America, how we started and how we got here. So sometime in digging out all of this history, you see it's obvious that we are celebrating all of this, but there are little like bad knots that are, diluting the history. So yes, and also it's very good to know a little bit, if you cannot know a lot, of the history of this fabric, because not all fabrics could be worn to anywhere. You cannot wear like red and black with a grief design to somebody's naming ceremony. That could be an insult because somebody is celebrating the life of a baby who is born, and what you are wearing is a symbol of sorrow. In some communities, there could be a question mark on you. And there are times where people use it to throw shades. And I could wear a fabric that has a hidden meaning saying, never argue with a fool. And then the person who is also responding might wear another one that might be a thousand conversation with a fool. I mean, one conversation with a wise man is better than a thousand conversation with a fool. So sometimes it happens like that. And there's one that says "tu sors, il sort" in French, which means when you go out, I go out. You will see the fabric has a symbol, like a design of a bird flying out of a cave. It's mostly worn by newly wedded brides, which means they're telling their husband, when you go out behind me, I would also go out. What do you think? Sorry, I missed the question sometimes. So when you see it, do you think there is a difference between the way Americans view arts versus the rest of diaspora? Yeah, I think it's hard to go direct on this question, but I would say art in Africa has always been part of our livelihood. So in a times the word art is subtracted from it because it's seen as a culture. It's seen like performance art. Performance art has already been in Africa so many years ago, where the fetish priest would come and dancing. And even the word fetish, the way the name came about, it's also like a playful way because there's some colonization over there, like a playful. But we were serious. We are like dancing and celebrating the like nature, like the gods. But then when it comes outside to the West or diaspora, the West being called literate when you can read other languages, but not English. So I think there is a little bit where, like a lot of Africans, we see it more of a culture and so it becomes like a community. Comment from Chad. I love how you are navigating faith into history from MTA, Stephanie. Okay, thank you, Stephanie. Yeah, so yeah, so sometimes all of this, the way in which we work with this fabric and art is so, I see it so different. I think it also comes from the way I was like taught art. I wasn't taught art as a profession. I was taught art as a way of life. To like one people after school. I stayed under Amon Kote, who is the one who designed the coat of arm of Ghana. He died in his like late 90s. I used to go to him. We used to have conversations. Like every weekend, I would go there. We would have conversation. It was from him that I learned the layers of rock. Because I think sometimes when somebody calls themselves, an artist calls themselves a colorist, sometimes it's very frightening to hear that. But a colorist, to me, at that time, I learned being a colorist was an artist that mimics nature, because color comes from nature. So like this idea of like you are mimicking it, you are playing with it, you like earth colors, everything comes from the ground, and then you go out somewhere. So sometime like Sirigu, where I reference the form of art in making my Ubuntu series, they make colors from earth. So they, in their mind, like nature is what is supplying us with what we have to do. We get everything from there, and they work with their hands, like molding and fixing. And yeah, so that is like how it's been. I don't know if I missed any question. Please, maybe you could go back and paste it
I think
down.
people are just giving you shout outs in general, saying how much they love the work, and it's absolutely phenomenal. Um, I just wanted, like, it seems like you just, like, you explained kind of some of the reasons and story of how you came to just use materials in general, and you mentioned your brother working in sustainability.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that necessarily that's your initial reason for reusing materials, but it seems like there's definitely a conversation even about sustainability in nature and reuse and waste and
Yeah, yeah. I think like reuse, reuse would be a way for us to tackle the problem of overproduction. Because when we overproduce, sometimes it has to go waste. But if we have to reuse it, then the production is being reduced because we are able to reuse what is already there. But like sometimes you could do your part, but honestly, like the politics involved is what like we could do manage, like even one garbage bag, all of this could help. But in a way, I'm not what my work is not only addressing that issue, but I'm inspired by whatever I see, whatever I hear, whatever I feel. So I use all my senses as a source of inspiration. Then I have like a dialogue with my materials. And most of these materials, you talk. I don't know if John, you're an artist, so sometimes this conversation exists. It's real. When you see, I know maybe a lot of like other artists will reaffirm to this, by walking into materials for the arts, like a lot of things like the outside world shut down, because it's like, okay, now you don't need to spend money. Look around you, like just use what is in front of you. Like don't think about your credit card, don't think about anything that you have at home. Yeah, I know sometimes we would need something outside because we want to fabricate something, which is good because that is security. You find, but you have to look inside, you have to look within you before you could tell an outside story. Like it's so real when you enter into it. You see like furniture, you see wood, you see beads, and out of nowhere, you could see like baby's toy.
hmm.
And then as you walk outside, you could see like a frame or a broken like plastic frame. And it's broken. Yes, it's broken, but the act of broken itself translates to something else. So it becomes a way that you could have another thing coming from shadow. You wait for another beautiful. Okay, it's same. Yeah. So all of this goes back to, who we are and how we consume and how we wish to be remembered by the generations yet unborn. That is how come this conversation between my brother and I has been going. And for him, I know for some reason, since we were all in Ghana, I used to like to read his books, like economics books. He was studying economics. Sometimes I would just see his books and I would open, read, and then put it down. I don't go by the numbers. I just open and read whatever I see. And then sometimes I have a conversation with him, and at times I have conversation with my mom. So, all of this adds up to making art becomes part of your life. It is like it's a lifestyle, and all adds up. That's how I feel it. I hope others also feel the same. And all we do, all I do as an artist is to hope that whatever I create, for that reason, it's able to reach far and touch. It's able to reach far to connect with what I think, and then slowly, it's a process. We would get there. Yeah. Yeah.
Listen, your work is doing it. It's inspiring. I mean, really, it just for me, I hope for the people that get to see it. But I mean, it's so many different valuable things. But one thing for sure is just inspiring, and like you say, it makes us realize that anything can be an art material, and that you can be so creative in so many different ways.
Yeah.
So. TJ, I think we're probably at the end of our conversation for the night. You and I talk forever, and folks,
Yeah, of course.
this isn't the end. So TJ is now going to have his exhibit at Materials for the Arts. It's going to be, available in person. I'm not sure how soon, but we're going to create a virtual tour of it. One of our colleagues, Stephen, has created a virtual tour. So eventually, you'll actually be able to go online and walk through the show virtually. So. Thank you so much. And folks, thanks for joining us. Materials for the Arts every month, third Thursday, we try to have some kind of an engagement with an artist and share that with you. So again, thank you so much, Tijay Mohammed.
Thank you also. And yeah, let's just keep moving. And thank everybody for being here. Everybody who is supported in, supplying materials to like my works, to materials for the art, for artists to use. It's a big thank you to all of you because you help in making this happen. Thank you.
All right. Well, thank you. Thank you, Omar. Thanks, everybody. Have a great night. Take care. Be safe.
Thank you. All right.